Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of The Kingdom Within. I'll tell you what, I've just come out here to take a hike, and tell you the truth, they got good well water here at the county park, so I grabbed a couple gallons of water to take with me so I have it for hiking and when I'm at the house drinking water, because that town water's got all kinds of stuff in it. And I'll tell you, I come out hiking, but I decided before I go on my hike, I would just go ahead and do this video. And while I could sit here comfortably and do it. And one of the things that I was actually wanted to talk about was that, you know, my mother and I, we had just talked this before I come out here a little while ago, because my mother does not like to talk about anything about, she sees God as love and doesn't want to talk about Revelation and all the things that are going to go on, and because she doesn't want to think about it. And I don't blame her. I don't want to think about it either, but the Holy Spirit said I'm going to think about it and showed me things, because part of my message is to help people understand that this isn't God's judgment. That, you know, it's Revelation talks about the things that are going to happen. And they are going to happen. But I want you to understand why they're going to happen. It's not that God isn't love, because God is love. That's what he chooses to be, and therefore that's what he is. But he gives us two choices between love and selfishness, and we often choose selfishness. But understand that I'm going to give you a couple examples so that you understand why it is he's going to allow it to all go down. One of the things that I discussed with her was about gambling. We've put casinos all over this nation, and what happens is when we allow gambling to go on, even though it seems like it's not hurting anybody, wherever they put the casinos, the economy around it gets bad, and crime starts showing up and all of that stuff. It's just like Las Vegas, and it happens that way everywhere. And not only that, but also, even though you're not addicted to gambling, you're playing a game that a lot of people do get addicted to gambling, and them and their families suffer consequences for being addicted to gambling. So even though it's not causing many people suffering, it's causing other people suffering. And it's not right that we leave our nice neighborhoods and country settings to go gamble at a casino that's going to cause other people to live in poverty. And it's just not casinos, it's that way with everything with these corporations. Walmart, for instance, everywhere Walmart goes, everybody knows that it kills the economy, that all the mom and pop stores close, and you end up a bunch of middle income people turning into minimum wage workers because Walmart pays next to nothing. And so everywhere they go, they destroy the economy. And everywhere they go, people shop there instead of the mom and pop stores because it's cheaper. So it becomes, it's a catch-22. It's the same thing with all of our factories going overseas. They're going overseas because that's where they can get third world countries, they can get the equivalency of slave labor. They can pay people far less than what they're worth because that's what those countries are like. And just like our country was like that until it wasn't. And now because of our laws, they're not allowed to treat us that way. And so it's cheaper to go somewhere else. Now understand that it's not that they're evil, even though they are. The problem is publicly traded corporations have to pay the stockholders, and they have to compete. So the first time one of those companies go to a third world nation, they're now higher in competition because their profit margin is bigger. So all the rest of them follow suit because it's what they have to do to compete. So the people will buy their stocks because they're making money. So we've created an entire system built on selfishness. And we've become a slave to this system. And there's just no way out of it because there just isn't. And so what's going to happen is Revelation isn't about God's judgment. It's about releasing the captives, because we become captive to our own system. When he talked about this thought of Satan that we would manifest into flesh, he was talking about a publicly traded corporation. They said in Revelation, it said that this thought of Satan that we would manifest, it is what is not yet is. And that's what a corporation is. It exists only on paper. It is absolutely nothing. Yet we've given them the rights of United States citizens, and they have no consciousness. And so we become a slave to ourselves, basically. And now we have corporations that own corporations. And so now you have a few corporations that have actually bought a bunch of stock of the other corporations, and now you have even bigger monsters that they talk about in Revelation. They talked about the dragon. You will know the dragon if you look at who owns all the other corporations. That's the dragons. So the dragon and the ones that they were talking about being evil are the ones holding its reins. Now, it's not that they're evil, but they're evil by nature because they're selfish. You know, when someone is willing to own everything and pay other people to work for nothing, there's evil in that. You might not want to admit to it if you're one of the top of these corporations and making a lot of money, but what it causes us to do is we've had to give up our ethical thought system in order to function in this society. Because if we recognize that it's wrong and admit to it, then we have to do something different. So, and what I've come to realize is there is no way around it. It's in everything. I worked in mental health for the last 10 years, and the doctors can't even do what they want because the insurance companies won't allow them enough time to be with a person to figure out what's really wrong. All they're allowed to do is shove medication down their throat. The entire system is built this way, including the medical system, because it's run by corporations that are after a profit. And there's just no way to get around this. So understand that, and we live in fear all the time. Everybody's worried about that stock market crashing, and so people can't even worry about one another because they're too worried about what's going to happen. So understand that we've created a system that is just built on fear and greed. And the only way for us to do something different is to not have a system like that. And since we won't stop it, he's gonna. But it's not a bad thing. It's just it will be a bad thing when it happens, because it's going to be ugly, and everybody pretty much knows that. But it's called we wouldn't make the choice, and because we wouldn't make the choice, he's going to make the choice for us. Because the world was created so that we could know love by experience. And that's the whole purpose of it for God. God created it so that he could know love by experience. We're supposed to love him, and because we love him, he gets our love. But in this system that we've created, that can't happen because we're working 7 days a week instead of one parent staying home and taking care of the child so they can get raised properly. Both are working themselves to death, and nobody's raising the children. And so just understand that what God's doing, he's doing kind of as a favor to us, even though it doesn't seem like it. So what he's going to do is create a new society where after we've done this once, our children won't do it again. So understand that God doesn't want the suffering, but we've chose to accept the suffering for ourselves. And because we choose it for ourselves and we won't choose anything different, he's going to choose something different for us. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. It's a train that's got no brakes, friend. You can't stop this system without a crash. You know it as much as I do. So it's not about stopping it. It's about letting it be stopped, and he's going to do it. But the system's already set to fail, and everybody at the top knows that, and the rest of us have been being fed garbage from those news companies, which turned out are owned by those big corporations. The Republican and the Democratic news are owned both by the same corporation. So how are you going to get real news? You're not. You're not supposed to. you're supposed to be a good American, which means buying into all the things that they tell us so that we will just continue to go along without looking at the truth of who we are and what we're doing. Because at this point, there is no stopping it. So what I'm been on here talking about all the time is Jesus and the kingdom, right? That's what I talk about. So you can still get the kingdom, because I have the kingdom. But this is a time where you're going to choose it or you're not. And if you're not going to choose it, don't ask my Father for a kingdom that you're not willing to seek and then give to another one, because that's what Jesus said. Jesus said that this is about loving thy neighbor as thyself and giving to another what it is you would seek for yourself. So if you want love, if you want this thing called the kingdom, which is love, forgiveness, and non-judgment, then you not only need to find it for yourself, but give it to your neighbor. And that's what I do. I'm on here talking about these things. I'm not talking about them for fear's sake, because I don't expect you to stop it. I don't expect you to do anything different except for read Jesus, get a Bible with what Jesus said and read. As a matter of fact, because my one Bible's in Virginia, in my truck, I just ordered this morning, I just ordered a new red letter edition of a Bible that'll be here in a few days, because I don't read a Bible, because what other people have to say has no meaning to me. What the church has to say has no meaning to me. What the Old Testament says has no meaning to me, friend. Jesus said that he was the light in the way, and he meant that. Oh, you can drink all the grape juice or wine and eat all the bread you want, but you're not eating Jesus's body unless you're eating his word, and you're not drinking his blood unless you're drinking his spirit. So, and you can know that because right at the beginning of John, it said the world was made through Jesus. Well, in the beginning of Genesis, it said the world was made through the Word. So what it was telling you is that Jesus is the Word. So therefore, eat his Word and drink his Spirit, and you will find the kingdom that you're looking for. But there's a whole series of commands that he asked you to do. It's not something that you just get by going to church once a week. It's about doing the things he asked so that you could end up finding what it is he had. And the kingdom isn't there, it's here. It's for anybody to choose. But I can't tell you what the kingdom is, because it's something just like he said in the parables. You know, it's like you were looking for a pearl and you found the perfect pearl and you went and sold everything and bought that pearl, or you found it in the field and so you sold everything and bought the field and reburied the treasure. That's what the kingdom is like. It's something you can't explain. This relationship with God through the Holy Spirit is amazing. It's the reason I'm out here in the woods most of the time by myself. When I'm with people, I can't talk about a whole lot of stuff because I just don't want to betray myself anymore by letting my tongue betray me. And that's what Jesus said. It's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth. It's all these things we say that have no meaning or have bad meaning. That's what really defiles us, and that's what causes us suffering. And understand that the revelation is also going to be something that we're going to bring on ourselves, as I've talked about all these other things. But Jesus also gave you a parable about, well, not a parable, he was talking to the disciples when they were trying to decide who was the greatest among them. And he said, to be great, you have to be a servant to everyone. And he said, to be greatest in the kingdom, you have to be a slave to all. Now, what he was talking about was, my Father is the greatest in his own kingdom. So understand that that which we say ends up happening. When our tongues betray us, well, then we get what it is we talk about. And a lot of people have figured that out. There's a movie called The Secret where they talk about what you believe in will show up, and they call God a genie. The problem is that's how you end up with these horrible consequences when you think of God as a genie. Because he gave you those rules, things that he called sins. It's not that they were sin as in that there's just no reason for it. There's a reason for it. When you gamble and people suffer, it causes suffering. When you let greed rule and people go hungry, because, friend, a third of this world is starving to death. Thousands of people are dying a day from starvation. Now, how can that happen while we have corporations that are going and enslaving the third world countries so that we can have things cheaper here? It just doesn't make any sense. But we don't want to look at that, and because we don't want to look at it, God's looked at it for us. So understand that this judgment coming is not God's anger, it's just what has to be done, because we don't want it to be done. I don't blame you, friend. I don't like, I've seen what's coming. I don't like what I've saw. And I don't even want to talk about it because it's coming anyway, but the Holy Spirit told me that I am going to talk about it, because if you hear these things, then you have an opportunity to choose the kingdom before that. I myself was in a dilemma, because Jesus said, whatever I whisper in your inner ear, shout from the rooftops, and that's what I do. And he wants me to do it, so I do it, because when I talk to the Holy Spirit said I'm going to talk about it. So I'm talking about it whether I want to or not, because fear doesn't work. This is all about love. But you have to choose one or the other. Fear and selfishness is your thought of Satan, and love, forgiveness, and non-judgment is your thought of God. And the choice you make is the one you have. And we as a nation have made the wrong choice. And we did it in the name of God. So understand there's a price to that. And people don't want to think about that either. But when you declare yourself one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, friend, in the Old Testament, it was the Jews that kept taking the hit for doing everything in the name of God. And we weren't thinking about what it is we were thinking about. And I don't care if you're atheist or not. It doesn't matter whether you believe in God. I'm telling you, there is a God, and that which is coming is coming. And this nation will drink twice from the cup of what you call the wrath of God, except it's not his wrath. It's him fixing the planet. But it's going to look like wrath because of the way it all goes down. And understand that my Father knew in the beginning the end. So he knew that this nation was going to do exactly what it did. And so therefore he knew exactly how to create the planet in order to put the right things in the right place for those that were messing up to drink twice from that cup, friend. So understand that it doesn't matter. It was all done in the beginning because he knew the end. And if you don't believe in Jesus and the Bible, then you probably won't believe that. But anybody that truly understands God knows that it's all going on at once. Jesus even said that when he was talking about, when he said that God is not the God of the dead, but of the living, because all are living to God. So God isn't just here, he's there, he's everywhere. I don't know how to explain it to you. I've seen it and I know what he's talking about, but it's one of those things I can't put into words. So with that in mind, it's time for us to choose the kingdom or not. And don't expect everyone else to do it, friend. Nobody thinks I'm well. I've managed to have a couple trips to the psychiatric hospital in the last 12 years because I talk to the Holy Spirit and nobody else believes it. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I choose the kingdom regardless of what you all do to me. Because at the end of the day, love is all that matters. And I do love you. And my Father loves you. And he wants you to have the better choice, but you have to make the better choice to receive it, and we just didn't do that. And as you can tell, with billions of people on the planet, you're not going to turn everybody at once, and there's just no way for this system to do it. If you get on YouTube and start understanding the true nature of our financial system, you'll know that it's based on nothing but faith. And it's basically like a big Ponzi scheme. And it's one of those things that you either accept that or you don't, and they don't want you to know it, and that's the reason They don't talk about it on the news because the corporations own it. They don't want us to wake up because otherwise we'd lose faith in the system. But hardly anybody listens to my videos. So I won't wake up too many people, but a couple of you might want to wake up if you hear this video and try looking into doing something that's going to bring you the kingdom and bring your neighbor the kingdom if you want the kingdom in your death. Because hell is not for eternity, but it's coming here, friend. You're going to think it's hell when all this stuff breaks loose. Because all these people that have based their lives on selfishness, they ain't going to have no love for nobody when people start getting hungry. People are going to be doing things. So I'm just telling you that now's a good time to choose the kingdom and choose love. But don't choose it for the fear of it. Choose it for the love of it. Because fear doesn't work. It never did. But at this point, that's the reason I don't even want to talk about this, but the Holy Spirit said I will. Because a lot of people will turn it into fear, and it's not about fear, it's about love. It's about my Father righting the wrongs so that we can go back to being people that can love one another. Because after this hard spot we're going to go through, our children are going to choose to do better than we did. And because this time it won't be like Noah where we didn't see what went on, we'll have history of what we did, and our children will not make the same mistakes we did. They will not allow anyone to build these public corporations that are built on greed and will destroy everything because it's their nature. So this won't happen again. So anyway, I hope you choose the kingdom, because the kingdom is a wonderful thing. And I absolutely love it. And even though I know it's coming, I live in the wilderness with God a lot. I go back, I live in society just like everybody else, but I spend a lot of my time with the Holy Spirit, so I don't have to think about these things that's going to go on, because I've seen way too much. But what I know is that love is the way. It's always been the way, and it will always be the way. But until we as a human race choose love together, well, we won't get what it is that this world was created for. So, anyway, just know I love you because my Father loves you. May God bless you and yours.